This strategy is going to drain the pockets of the broker faster than my girlfriend drains the pockets of myself when she goes shopping. That's right, guys. What's up? This is Hunter FX back with another video. This one's going to be super cool. This one's for the beginners. This one is a beginner-based strategy. I have more advanced strategies, but I wanted to create something super simple, something somewhat similar to my style here. This isn't actually how I'm trading, but it's similar, and I'm going to explain it to you in very easy to do terms for a new person to understand what's kind of going on in the market. Let's dive into it. You're gonna get friggin' rich. Let's do it. All right, guys, so like I said, it's gonna be a super simple strategy. It's basically gonna break down into just a couple parts. The first thing that you'll notice is we're looking at the Euro USD, and we're actually in an uptrend right now. An uptrend is going to make it more easy, and all we have to do is define this as a beginner. You know, you're a beginner, is that it is going from the left lower corner to the upper right corner. That's a very strong uptrend. We don't need to define it in any other way. If you're a beginner, it should be quite obvious for you. There are more strict ways to do it. We're not going to dive into that there. And we're going to be looking at a supply and demand based strategy, and we're going to be looking at 2 time frames. The time frame's right up here, guys. So we're going to do an hourly. You can use a different time frame if you like, and we're going to use a 5-minute. Just use a rough spread of about that range. You know, maybe you can do the daily and the 15 or something like that. Whatever suits your preference. As long as it's kind of around that area, right? So as we're just diving into this, I want to make sure you guys know that this is a strategy that I want to make sure is for beginners. It's quite similar to my own strategy, but the goal here is to use methods that are going to be very easy for beginners to understand, and use language that's very easy for a beginner to understand, rather than our normal intermediate to advanced types trading style. Once you are becoming more of an advanced trader, please make sure you check out that other stuff. For now, if you are a beginner, please watch this video. It should make a lot of sense. And if you're advanced, then you know this might just be reiteration of what you already know. It could still be helpful. So make sure you watch till the end. See you guys. What we're then going to look for is we're going to look for these big explosive moves, right? Something kind of like this. I'll just give it a little circle here so you can see a really big explosive move. You're seeing another big explosive move here, and you're seeing more explosive moves here. And again, up here, you're seeing an explosive move. And I've chosen this pair simply because there's a lot of explosive moves of this manner. And if you don't see a big explosive move like this, and you're just kind of seeing like ranging market, something like this, it's not going to be a very strong strategy of that. And you're just going to have to find it on another pair. Ideally, we want to use these higher volume pairs, like the USD pairs, and they're going to give us more accurate entries. So if we just get rid of some of those, and we draw our supply and demand zones, right? So to put it very simply, you're going to be looking for a block of range before that major move. So you're going to be drawing your demand zone here. The demand is always the lowest, and the supply is always the higher, guys. And you're going to draw it from the move that's basically bringing you to the low of that region of ranging trading action, essentially, is what I'm trying to say here. So from that last move there to the lows, you're going to be able to draw a nice little box there. Now, this is not a case where we're going to look at, but we can actually look at here where we can see that last move there to the lows. You can see that it actually did come back down and test that block again. And again, you can kind of see it happening here. And this is the last move there, all the way to those lows after a big explosive move. And then it comes back down and tests it. That's one we're just going to ignore because it's not the most pretty. But let's dive into this one here so you can just kind of see what that looks like. So what we want to look for, first of all, is on these higher time frames, as we're kind of following along and we're seeing that the trend is going or whatever, and it's coming back now, right? It's coming back into our zone. We want to then wait for it to touch the zone. If it doesn't touch the zone, we're ignoring it. We're not actually going to be entering any trades until it is in that zone, or it's at least touched it. So then we look on the lower time frame, and we're going to be able to see how it's actually reacting on the very quick time frame. And what I want as a final step for you guys is you're going to be looking for a confirmation that this zone is actually going to reject and bounce off of it, because so many times you will see that once the price does start turning around, you don't know which zone it's actually going to bounce off, because you can see there's one here, there's one here, there's a ton all the way back down. You don't know where it's going to bounce off. So we have to wait for this confirmation, and we don't want to have the confirmation on the higher time frame, because then we're going to be jumping in super late. So we look at the lower time frame, and then we hopefully get it right, because this is going to be the best way to look about it. And now, guys, I'm actually going to do something completely different than I normally do for this last final step here, is because I want to make it more simple for you. I want to make sure that you guys kind of understand this as a beginner strategy, as something that beginners, they not necessarily know exactly how I'm trading and how I'm defining the trend. So we're actually going to use something, just a simple trend line here. And I'm not an advocate of the trend line, but I know a lot of beginners, they love to draw out the trend line. And what we're going to do is we're basically just going to draw that line that keeps bouncing and rejecting off of it as it's diving back down, right? This is, again, not something that I would do. We can use more advanced tactics, but as a beginner, it's perfectly fine. So after we see that it actually does touch that zone, and then it breaks the trend line in the other direction here, you can actually see that it comes back, gives it a little kiss there, and we're going to be looking for a nice entry on that retest of the trend line, or roughly around it. And then we're going to be putting our stop below the lows there, and then we're going to be targeting, you know, at least the previous highs or further, right? I'm not going to give you guys an exact target because as beginners, you know, it's going to be a little bit hard for you to look for exact targets, and that's not necessarily going to be part of the strategy. But look for those rough highs from before. You're going to want to make sure it's roughly 2 or 3 times the distance of your stop. So this looks perfectly fine. If there's no if the highs are quite close and you don't have 2 or 3 times, then put it past the levels and see if you can match it up with something on the higher time frame here, some sort of range on the higher time frame that it would look pretty touching. You know, this is not the best case because we are in such a massive trend here. It's working quite well for us. So I pulled up another example. This is an example of UCAD. And now what we see here is we see a massive drop, right? That's the first thing we're looking for. This is not necessarily a case where it's in a trend, but we can see that it actually is going to probably work in our favor here. And we see that massive drop showing weakness in the market, showing a lot of players looking to get back in on this area. So what I've just drawn is, again, that move that's bringing us to the tops there. And we're just going to draw our supply zone there this time. And we can see that it actually goes past and then starts reversing the other direction. So let's just kind of look at what that looks like when we draw that same trend line back up. So again, this is kind of a way that I don't necessarily like drawing the trend lines, because you could basically draw this trend line here, drawing it off of those lows to these lows, and then you would end up getting into the trade right around here as it's breaking back down, which is good in our case. But you can see how I'm explaining it, that if I drew it like here, which a lot of people might like to chop through the line, then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be entering here, and you're going to be placing your stop behind there, and you're going to be targeting down here. Now, you would then get stopped out with this little stop hunt. That's called a stop hunt, where the market makers know that you're waiting there and they want to get you out of your positions. But this is a case that it would completely depend on how you drew those trend lines. And this is why I advocate not using trend lines, because they can be drawn very differently every single time. But this is a case where if you did draw it the way that I would have drawn it, this is the actual line that I've drawn, and you can see that it's actually kind of resting here, consolidating on that line, and then it breaks back down. And when does it break? It breaks right here, and then again, it retests that trend line. So we enter on that trend line, and then we can draw the stop below there, and we can target those lows. Again, we're getting about a 2R move there, so I probably would have targeted just a little bit lower on this level here and seen if we could got a little bit lower, and it went super far, so not even the actual end destination, but it did work quite well for us again in that situation. All right, now then, guys, I hope that that was actually helpful and a little bit simplistic version of what I do, I suppose. If you are a beginner, please make sure that you do watch some of the other videos. There's more advanced stuff that's somewhat similar strategies. That's actually gonna be a better way to trade this stuff. But I've broken it down in a manner that's gonna be very simple for you to understand and practice with as a beginner. This should be a strategy that is profitable. There's just better ways to refine it to be even better. So if you do play around with this, if that did make a lot of sense to you, then please go ahead, check out that other stuff. And if you guys do want to make sure you can join a Signal group or a Discord, that's free. The Signal group is not free. There's two in the link in the description below, depending on what your needs are. Guys, this is Hunter FX. It was a pleasure. I'll see you guys next time.